What is up, New Beginnings Church? Happy Thursday morning to you, and welcome to this devotion series through the Gospel of Luke. We're in Luke chapter 9, and we have come to the story that is the only story that's in all four of the Gospel accounts, and it's the feeding of the 5,000. But Luke gives you just a little bit of description in one particular area that I think is interesting. It's so interesting that I've built an entire sermon around the idea, and it's really, I think, a principle. And so let's dive in. So remember, he's taken a multitude of people that are kind of out in the countryside. He's out there teaching, and it says this. It says, late in the afternoon, the 12 came to Jesus and said, send the crowds away so they can go to the surrounding villages and the countryside. They can find food and lodging because we're in a remote place. And Jesus replied, you give them something to eat. And they answered and said, we have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, unless we go and buy food for all this crowd. About 5,000 men were there. But he said to his disciples, have them sit down in groups of about 50 each. Okay, that's my key verse right there. And the disciples did so, and everyone sat down, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks, and he broke them. Then he gave them to the disciples to distribute to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 baskets of broken pieces that were left over. Just a cool story. But I think the unique principle in there is that Jesus had them sit down in groups of 50. And I remember noticing that and thinking about how there are patterns sometimes when you look in the Bible about God using order and structure even. And so when you think about God's specific instructions for the tabernacle or the temple or the way that the Ark of the Covenant would have been designed, all these very intricate details. And so sometimes God is about order, right? And so I think there's a principle in here that says, hey, sometimes God wants to do a miracle in your life and bring something into your life that you need, but you need to order things to prepare yourself for that miracle. And so that's kind of the principle of order. Sometimes I'm praying for a miracle. Let me give you an example. If we find ourselves in a financial bind and now we're praying, God, I need some desperate help and provision here. I need you to, make a way. But the reality is that what we kind of need first is order. Because if we don't really know our income and our outgoing and don't have a budget and we don't have margin and we haven't thought through our finances, then even if God blesses you, saves the day, rescues that situation, well, because you don't have order, you're just going to be right back in that situation in a small amount of time anyway. And so then you're just back in the need of miracles all the time. But God doesn't want you to ever live that way. God wants you to live off of wisdom and principle and the order that he gives you. And so that would be true in your relationships. Let's say you just went through like a bad breakup and things were toxic and ugly. And it's like, okay, well, before I can have a really healthy relationship, I need to be healthy. Like the relationship that I'm in is only as healthy as I am. And so maybe I need to go work on me before I just go dive right back into another relationship. You can see this working in so many ways. If you bring order first, if your health is this way, you're believing God for a physical healing of some kind, but if you refuse to eat right and drink well and sleep enough and do the things that you need to do, it's like, well, even if God healed you, you'd be kind of right back there shortly in an amount of time because there's no order there. And so think, God, where do I need order in my life? And remember this, one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control and self-discipline. And so this is something that is inside of you. And so for some of us, we struggle more than others, but saying, hey, I want to become self-disciplined in an area and bring order and structure to it so that when God answers my prayer, I can actually receive that miracle and keep it. Principle of order, something to think about in your life. I bless you today. Hope you have a wonderful one, and I will see you tomorrow.